I didn't mean to find the diary. If anything, it was pure coincidence. Our school was going through renovations, so for a few weeks we had to use different classrooms. That day, our English class was moved to an older part of the building, one that most students never really went into. It felt different there. The walls were slightly darker, the lights flickered occasionally, and there was this constant quiet that didn't feel normal. Not peaceful quiet, more like the kind of silence where every small sound stands out too much. I remember arriving early that day. No one else was in the classroom yet. I sat down, took out my phone, and waited. After a few minutes, I got bored and started looking around. The classroom was older than the others. Wooden desks instead of plastic, shelves filled with old books, and cabinets that looked like they hadn't been opened in years. That's when I noticed the drawer. It was part of the teacher's desk, slightly open, just enough for me to see something inside. At first, I ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. I stood up, walked over, and pulled the drawer open. Inside, there were some papers, old notebooks, and a small black diary. It didn't look like a school notebook. It looked personal. Worn edges, slightly faded cover, no name on it. I hesitated for a second. I knew I probably shouldn't open it, but something about it felt important, like it wasn't just a random notebook. So I picked it up and opened it. The first few pages were normal. Dates, short entries, nothing unusual. Stuff like, "Today was boring. I hate math. I think I did okay on the test." It looked like a regular student diary, probably someone who used this classroom years ago. I almost closed it, but then I flipped a few more pages, and that's when I saw something that made me stop. My name, written clearly, right in the middle of the page. I froze. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Maybe someone else had the same name. But then I read the full sentence. "I saw him again today. He doesn't know yet." I felt a strange chill. My brain immediately started trying to explain it. Maybe it was about someone else. Maybe it wasn't me. But something felt wrong, so I kept reading. The next line said, "He sits near the window, always looking at his phone before class." My heart started beating faster. That was exactly what I had been doing just a few minutes ago, sitting near the window, on my phone. I quickly looked around the empty classroom. Still no one there, just me and the diary. I looked back down and kept reading. "He found the drawer today." I dropped the diary. It hit the desk with a loud sound. My hands were shaking. That line was impossible, because I had just opened the drawer, just now, seconds ago. I stared at the diary like it was something dangerous, like it wasn't supposed to exist. After a moment, I slowly picked it up again and checked the date. That's when things got even worse. The entry was dated tomorrow. I felt my stomach drop. I checked it again. Same thing. The date wasn't today. It wasn't yesterday. It was tomorrow's date. That didn't make any sense. Maybe I was reading it wrong. Maybe the dates were written differently. But no matter how I looked at it, it was still tomorrow. I flipped back to previous pages. All normal, dates in order, everything consistent. Until I reached that page, the one with my name, the one describing exactly what I had just done. I felt like my brain was trying to reject what I was seeing. There had to be an explanation. There always is, but I couldn't find one. The classroom door suddenly opened. I flinched and quickly closed the diary. A few students walked in, talking loudly. Everything instantly felt normal again. Too normal, like nothing had happened. I quickly put the diary back in the drawer and returned to my seat. For the rest of the lesson, I couldn't focus at all. The teacher was explaining something, but I didn't hear a word. All I could think about was that diary, that page, those sentences, over and over in my head. He found the drawer today. He doesn't know yet. What did that even mean?
After class ended, I waited. I didn't leave immediately. I pretended to pack my things slowly while everyone else walked out. Once the room was empty again, I stood up and walked back to the desk. The drawer was still there, slightly open, just like before. For a second, I hesitated, but then I pulled it open again. The diary was still inside, exactly where I left it. I took it out and opened it again, straight to that page. My name was still there, the same words. Nothing had changed. But this time, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. At the bottom of the page, there was another line. I was sure it wasn't there earlier. It said, "He came back."
My chest tightened, because it was true. I did come back. I looked around the classroom again. Still empty. But now it didn't feel empty. It felt like I was being watched. I turned back to the diary, slowly flipped the page. The next page had another entry, dated the day after tomorrow. My hands were shaking again as I started reading. He thinks it's a coincidence. I swallowed. That was exactly what I had been telling myself, that this was just a coincidence, that it didn't mean anything. The next line, he will keep reading. I immediately closed the diary, like it had just said something directly to me. I stood there for a few seconds, breathing slowly, trying to calm down. But it wasn't working, because deep down, I knew one thing. This wasn't random. This wasn't normal. And somehow, this diary knew exactly what I was doing. I didn't want to open the diary again, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way it described what I was doing, the way it seemed to know my thoughts, it didn't feel like coincidence anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. The drawer, my name, the future date. And the worst part, he will keep reading. It was right. I knew I would. The next day, I got to school earlier than usual. I didn't even think about it. I just woke up, got ready, and went straight there, like something was pulling me back. The hallway was empty when I arrived. Same quiet feeling as yesterday. Same strange atmosphere. I walked into the classroom. No one there. The drawer was slightly open again. Exactly the same. I stood there for a few seconds, then slowly walked up to the desk and pulled it open. The diary was still inside, waiting. I picked it up, took a deep breath, and opened it. I flipped directly to the next page, the one dated today. My hands were already shaking before I even started reading. The first line said, "He came back earlier than usual." I froze. That was true. I never come this early. The next line, "He looks more nervous today." I instinctively looked around the room, like someone could be watching me, but it was still empty. Completely empty. I looked back at the diary. The next line made my stomach drop. He checked the hallway before entering. I slowly turned my head toward the door. I did that, without even thinking. Before I came in, I glanced down the hallway, just for a second, just to make sure no one was there. How could this diary know that? I kept reading, even though every part of me was telling me to stop. He still thinks there is an explanation. That line hit me hard, because it was true. Even now, I was trying to find logic in this, trying to convince myself that this wasn't what it looked like. The next line, "He will test it." I stopped. Test it? I hadn't even thought about that yet. But now that I read it, I realized I was about to. I grabbed a pen from the desk, flipped to a blank page, and wrote, "If you are real, write something." I stared at the page. Nothing happened. A few seconds passed. Still nothing. I felt a small sense of relief. Maybe this was all just some weird setup. Maybe the diary wasn't actually responding. Maybe... A new line appeared, right under what I wrote. I didn't see it being written. It just appeared, like it had always been there. "You already know I'm real." I dropped the pen.
My heart was racing so fast it almost hurt. I stepped back from the desk. For a moment, I considered just leaving, walking out and never coming back. But I couldn't. I needed to understand.
I slowly picked the diary back up. My hands were shaking worse now. I turned the page. The next entry was dated tomorrow again. I hesitated, then started reading. He is starting to panic. That was true, completely true. He wants to stop, but he won't. I clenched my jaw, because that was also true. The next line, he will take the diary home. I immediately closed it. No, I said quietly, out loud, like I was responding to it. I'm not doing that. The classroom door opened again. A few students walked in. I quickly put the diary back into the drawer, sat down, and tried to act normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. All day, I couldn't focus. Every thought led back to the diary, and that one line, he will take the diary home. I kept telling myself I wouldn't, that I wasn't that stupid, that I would just leave it there and forget about it. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. After school ended, I stayed behind again, same as yesterday. Waited until everyone left. The classroom became quiet, empty. I walked slowly to the desk, stood there, looking at the drawer. I knew exactly what I was about to do, and I hated it. But I still opened it. The diary was there, exactly where it always was. I picked it up, held it in my hands, and for a moment I just stood there, thinking. Then I whispered, "This is a bad idea," and put it in my backpack. The entire walk home felt wrong. Every step, every sound. It felt like I was carrying something I wasn't supposed to have. When I got home, I went straight to my room and locked the door. I didn't want anyone to see it. Didn't want anyone asking questions. I took the diary out of my backpack and placed it on my desk. For a few minutes, I just stared at it, like it might move on its own. Finally, I sat down and opened it again. The first thing I checked was the last page I had read, the one about taking it home. There was a new line now, one that definitely wasn't there before. Good. I felt a chill run down my spine. It sounded like approval, like I had done exactly what it wanted. I flipped to the next page, the next entry, dated today. He brought me home. My chest tightened. Now it will be easier. Easier? Easier for what? I quickly turned to the next page, tomorrow's entry. My hands were shaking again. I started reading. He will try to stop reading tonight. That was already my plan. I didn't want to keep going. I didn't want to see what comes next. But the next line made my heart drop. He won't. I closed the diary immediately, pushed it away from me. No, I said again. I'm done. I turned on my computer, tried to distract myself, watched videos, scrolled through my phone, anything to not think about it. But it didn't work, because I kept looking at the desk, at the diary. It felt like it was pulling my attention, like it was waiting. After about 10 minutes, I gave in. I grabbed it again, opened it. This time I flipped further ahead, past tomorrow, past the next few days. I didn't know what I expected to find, but what I saw made everything worse. Every page had my name, every single one, and every entry described things I hadn't done yet, things I was thinking, things I would do. But then I reached a page that made me stop, a page dated 3 days from now. I started reading. He will try to get rid of me. My heart started pounding because that thought had already crossed my mind. Burn it, throw it away, destroy it. The next line, it won't work. I swallowed. The next line was worse. He will understand soon. Understand what? I kept reading, and then I saw the final line on that page, the one that made my hands go cold. He will realize this is his diary. I dropped it. This time, I actually stood up from my chair. No, That didn't make any sense. This isn't mine. I never wrote this. I never owned this. But something about that line felt right, in a way I couldn't explain. I slowly sat back down, picked the diary up again, turned back to the very first page. The handwriting. I hadn't really paid attention to it before, but now that I looked closer, it felt familiar. Too familiar. I grabbed a piece of paper, wrote my name, then looked back at the diary. The handwriting was almost identical. Not perfect, but close enough to make my stomach drop. I flipped through more pages, faster now, looking at the writing, the words, the way sentences were formed. It all felt like something I would write, like something I had written, but I didn't remember doing it. I turned to the last page, the very end. There was only one line written there. He finally understands. I slowly looked up from the diary. My room felt different now, quieter, heavier, like something had changed. I looked back down and saw something new. On the last page, a blank space, and then letters starting to appear, slowly, one by one, forming a sentence. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just watched as it finished writing. Now, keep writing. And without even thinking, I picked up the pen.